So let's get after it. The state of the speaking industry. What are we doing today? What are we going to talk about? What is our agenda? What is on the table for discussion today? Very simply, we're going to look at the newest data, some recent reports that have come out, and I'll explain what my sources are. I'll explain why they're significant and why they're important, why we need to pay attention to these sources. And of course, we will give you some advice based on what the data is showing. So some practical, tactical tips, whether you are a starting out speaker or whether you are what I call a momentum speaker, or if you are established. Now, there's one more category of speaker, and I consider this a little bit different. This is what I call the celebrity speaker, and quite honestly, we're not gonna be talking to y'all today, celebrity speakers. You're welcome. You can hang out, but we don't have much in the way of advice. But for the rest of us mere mortals, especially someone like me who doesn't have any qualifications to be a professional speaker, at least when I went into this space, I'll be telling you all about that, filling you in, but making sure again that you know what to do with this data, that you know what to do moving forward. I will say the data isn't glowing and exciting. It may be a bit of a bummer, bit of a downer when you start seeing what's going on in the industry. But at the same time, there is something we can do about it, right? So let's talk about what we're going to do after we look at the data and get some advice based on it. We're going to tell you a little bit about the state of the Get Speaking Gigs world, what we are doing now, what we are absolutely not doing, what we absolutely refuse to do. But first, let's talk a little bit about why. Basically, I started Get Speaking Gigs about 2012. So back in 12, 13, that's kind of what I looked like. A lot of people think I looked 12 or 13 back then. But, again, people just started asking, Tim, how are you doing this? How are you getting booked? Remember, I just said I don't have any like real qualifications that you would expect, right? So when people started seeing me have success in the speaking space, they were asking me, how are you doing this? I love this meme when your neighbor sees the limo pick you up. And that's kind of the sort of face I think that a lot of speakers and established professionals were making. They were like, what is going on? Why is this kid in the back of limos? And this was a premier flight, premier class, right? Which is like basically a little suite in the sky, full bed, full TV. It was like a little room, and I've had the opportunity to speak in some pretty cool places. That's the Beverly Hills Montage on the left, and the not the Royal Caribbean, what's that called? The Ritz-Carlton in Naples, Florida. A bunch of cool little resorts, and I've gotten a chance to speak with my heroes and sign books. And the bottom line is, people saw this guy. I used to be a magician, people, right? I used to do magic tricks for little kids' birthday parties. That's my credibility, right? That that's where I started. Yes, that is not like AI generated. That is literally a printed photo that I got at like Olin Mills or something. I actually think it was like a department store. Tuxedo t-shirt, raccoon puppet in hand, rocking it, right? That is not even a felt top hat. That is made of plastic, like solid hard plastic. So, yeah, if this guy with no speaking experience, no corporate work experience, no college education, no book, no website, no demo video, no promo materials, no budget, no speech at the time, I had no prospects, no connections, really no clue if this guy was doing it. And again, I've had the chance, I've spoken in 48 states, a bunch of countries around the world, and gave a TEDx talk, a book deal with Penguin Random House. I've been on the Today Show and Forbes and Harvard Business Review, Inc. magazine, all kinds of stuff. How are you doing it? So here's the answer. When people were asking me that, that's why Get Speaking Gigs started, is because I just started answering people's questions, right? Well, this is how I did it. And they knew this is really important. This guy, right? It literally is, if this guy can do it, that must mean that success in the speaking industry isn't about your credentials. It isn't about who you are as much as it is about what you do. And this is really important for our topic today because the market will fluctuate and change, and there's a lot of external factors, but there are also, again, things that we can do and processes that we can take. So we're going to dive into that for sure. I started answering questions. Why, here's how to do it. And people said the same thing. Well, just do it then. Just go and speak and make your money. Um, my mentor taught me something very simple. He said, have a mentor and be a mentor, right? he lived this by example. He was learning and he was turning around and he was taking a step and then turning around and helping us to take that step. Um, he taught me that teaching teaches. If you're teaching something, you learn it better. So I've always been just sort of, of the mindset. It's real simple. Why do I teach this? Abundance mindset, right? I'm not one of these people who's like mired in this scarcity mindset. So I'm happy to share all of this data, but also it's really important to know that this isn't coming just from the speaking industry. Okay. Think about this. There is a speaking industry and there is an events industry. And we speakers are actually in the events industry, right? We serve the events industry. We are vendors who serve the events industry. So let's dive into the events industry. I think that is something that we really want to laser focus on, because this is true about any industry. There are haves and there are have-nots. And just because there are more speakers doesn't mean that all those speakers are taking your gigs, right? There's always going to be maybe a top 10%, top 20%, whatever, top 1% in any industry, and those people are gonna be just fine no matter what's going on in the industry, right? So the goal isn't let's stop speakers from coming into the space, but rather let's become speakers who they say that successful people do what unsuccessful people are unwilling to do, not what they're unable to do, but what they're unwilling to do. So some of the advice and the actionable items that I have for you today, you're going to say to yourself, oh, it's a good idea in theory, but I don't know if I want to do it. You may or may not be willing to become that 10%, right? So let's dive into what these action items actually are. And once again, based on industry reports, I have a file on my computer. I think it's a Google Sheet now. So it's just a list of all different reports that come out on a regular basis. And here's a quick screenshot of just a corner of that, so you can see a couple of these different ones. But more importantly, I wanted to grab this one because this Meetings Outlook report from MPI is the one we're going to start with. Okay. So the reason I want to start with this one is because of this right here. Q3 edition. 2025 Q3, right? And the reason that that's significant, quarter three, is because it's up to date. And what has happened this year in 2025 is at the end of 2024, everybody's excited. There was optimism. Everybody's happy. This is going to be a great year. Halfway through 2025, all of that changed, right? So if you're only looking at annual data, you're going to get sunshine, rainbows, and lollipops. But if you are looking at this quarterly data, then you're going to see you're going to have a finger on the pulse a little bit more, and have some more accuracy in terms of what we're doing. So let's look at the report. Let's dive in. In fact, it's not just this report alone. We have this finding that we are finding across the board here. And it's not a big surprise. This shouldn't surprise anyone. But let's take a look at events budgets. Budget projection. So this is a really cool little graphic that I pulled here because, again, you can see in Q4 of 2024, end of the last year, everybody's happy. 7 out of 10 people are favorable. Only 8% of the people think it's not going to be a great year. And that starts to drop a little bit. But look what happened in Q2. It dropped by about half from Q4 of last year, right? And then the negative outlook quadrupled. Now, Q3, we're noticing a little bit of an uptick, right? A little bit of the negative Nellies are like, all right, it's not that bad, I guess. But and you'll kind of see a pendulum swing if you start looking at these types of data over and over again, you'll see that happen, right? The sky is falling, oh no, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, all right, well, let's think about this, right? So as you take the temperature of the room, you'll notice these types of swings a little bit. So here's, again, a notable finding here. It looks like we're going up. It looks like we're improving. But if you look at last year, it is a significant drop. People think that the budgets for their events are plummeting. Why? Because they plummeted, right? That's what happened right around here, is that events started to plummet and they start looking at, oh my gosh, it's the recency bias. This just happened, so it's going to be happening forever, right? Is kind of the projection mindset here. And just for the sake of completeness, these are surveys of event professionals, people who essentially hire speakers, and they're asked about their budgets, like how much money you're going to have for these events moving forward. All right, so what's the finding? Budgets are down. Budgets are down, and they're down significantly. And the reasons for that, the report goes into more reasons, right? There's government impacts, there's attendance is down, crossing borders is getting more difficult, at least here in the States. Business conditions overall are down. So a lot of this stuff, including canceled speakers, that's like speakers saying, yeah, forget it. I'm not going. Like, again, it's not a huge percentage, but don't be that speaker, people. If you make the commitment, show up to the gig. My goodness. Fewer speaker options blows my mind. I think what they mean by this is fewer internal speaker options. So within our organization, we usually have Sally from finance come in and do a presentation. We have fewer options now within our organization because there certainly are not fewer speaker options. I promise you that for outside speakers. All right, so we know a little bit about what happened. We know a little bit about why. So what do we do? Right? What do we do about it? Budgets are down. Should we lower our fees? Should we raise our fees? Should we just run or hide or cry as a result of the budgets dropping? And let's actually just take a minute here. Let's just start by looking at a little bit of perspective, right? Let's start with perspective and let's ask, down from what, first of all? All right, budgets are down. Okay, cool, but down from what? And how much of this is going to affect speakers? How much is just like, oh, food and beverage budget or venue budget? Let's take a peek. Down from what? So we looked at the previous 2 years. All right, this is from AAE's speakers report. Pretty good data. It's pretty good sample size. Again, this is one of the reports we look at and trust. And the number that jumps off the page is the overall budget for hiring a speaker, right? Average budget for hiring a speaker is $22,449. Now that's average. Of course, you can see that it is broken down to these different groups. And what's interesting, the gray is 2023. The gold is 2024. I know we're in 2025 right now. So what we're looking at and what we want to learn from the past here is that different fee ranges are affected differently. Okay. So we pay this for speakers. This lower, less than 5,000 has gone up, but between 5 and 10,000 budget, well, that's gone down a little bit, but hey, 10 to 20,000, that went up from 23 to 24, right? So you see that different budget ranges are definitely impacted differently. So, the other thing I want you to notice is $22,000 may sound like a lot for a single speech. Don't forget that there's a lot of speakers who are charging over $50,000, right? And that was up here in this one, but down, way down here in this one. So a lot of times you look at like, oh, budgets are down, oh no. And really, these people are hard hit. The people who are spending, over $100,000 for a speaker. That's not me. That may not be anybody here in this room. That may be you. I don't know. But remember, what is affecting the industry is important, but what is affecting you is also, I think, what a lot of people are curious about when they come to sessions like this. So let's put it in perspective. Hey, even if this number 22K drops in half, 11K, that ain't bad, right? And again, I know, we want to maximize our opportunities and this and that, but listen, different people are affected differently. And here's the other thing I want to put in perspective for everybody. This is another survey, unrelated. This is all, same survey, but other topic. What are their priorities, right? What are their number one priority? Look, audience engagement is number one. Budget's number three, right? So even if budgets are down and staying within budget, like I can't tell you how many times, like last week, I booked 3 gigs last week, right? Last week I booked 3 gigs and every single one of them told me their budget was this. And then I'll tell you exactly, right? So 2 of them were from the same sort of speakers bureau it's like an industry that's very tightly knit. They have their own speakers bureau, and somebody on the inside told me, look, this is how we do it. We have a $4,250 budget for a speaker. That is our cap. We cannot go over that. It is a collective agreement among all of our groups. That is what we pay our speakers. So the first one hired me at $9,950. And the second one, I presented them with three options. And the third option was 17,500. And they said to me, do you have anything bigger? So once again, budget makes the list and it's high on the list. It is an important piece. Staying on budget, important to them. But it's not number one. It doesn't trump audience engagement or educating their audience with, valuable information that's important and relevant to them right now. So I hope you kind of see what I'm saying here with budget. It affects us, right? But does it really affect us? And does it affect us to the way that we assume and think that it might? And more importantly, again, what can we do? What can we do differently to have somebody say, hey, here's our budget, it's a cap maximum, and then pay us 4 times that amount? Like, how can we manage that? Or even say, can we do more than 4 times? All right, let's dive into the next bit of advice here, and we're going to give some specific actionable takeaways for new speakers, for momentum speakers, and for established speakers. And it's really important that we get different advice for these groups of speakers, and here's why. The shaky ball experiment. The shaky ball experiment. I'm going to explain it as I play it. So I'm going to hit the video, and I'm going to have you notice that there are 3 balls. Let's let that third one come into frame. A red, a green, and a yellow. A red, a green, and a blue. I know my colors. And he is shaking the whole table, but just the red one was going. And now he's shaking it in a different way, which is moving the green one. And finally, the third way to shake it is to get the blue one moving. Notice the others are not moving, okay? So you see where I'm going with this, right? New speakers might be that blue ball. It takes a lot of activity to get that going. But we wouldn't want an established speaker to do the same types of activities that a newer speaker would. For example, speaking for free. Very good advice for new speakers. You got to get reps. You got to build up your client base. You got to be seen speaking. You got to practice. A lot of good reasons to speak for free. Established speakers may not make the most sense to speak for free if that's the case. So here's a very important lesson. Even good advice at the wrong time is bad advice. Right? Good advice at the wrong time is bad advice. So it's very important. I know many of you we start looking for answers. What can I do? The market's down. This is, the sky is falling. What can I do? We have to make sure that what we do is good advice for you, and not just for you and for where you are at, but also in the context of where the market is at, right? Somebody said the other day that this is like, earthquake design, right? The earth may shake in different ways, and you have to design and be prepared for each of those things. So we're going to dive into it. We're going to give you a couple of different levels of advice. If you're a new speaker, momentum speaker, or established speaker, listen, first and foremost, if you find yourself being a new speaker, don't compare yourself. Don't feel like, oh, I'm nobody, I'm nowhere, I'm nothing. You're going to see so many other speakers out there. They're going to make you instantly depressed by how awesome their website is and how amazing their demo video is and how far along they are and how behind you feel. This is not a reason, this is not broken down in this way so that we can compare ourselves and shame ourselves, right? This is just so that we can make sure that the action that we're doing is going to shake the right ball for where we're at, right? It's going to make some momentum for us. So, good news, new speakers. Great news, in fact. The shaking of the earth, the marketplace going down, doesn't affect you guys as much, right? Doesn't affect newer speakers as much. And I'm going to define newer speakers as speakers who have not yet been paid to speak. Maybe even take that a little bit further. Maybe you've done 1 gig, maybe you got paid, maybe you got lucky or whatever. So maybe let's call that under 3 to 5 gigs paid, right? So pretty new in terms of the professional paid speaking space. And so let's dive into what you guys and gals can do as new speakers. Remember, you're not affected as much, so we want to keep the fundamentals going here. Number 1, anything that comes inbound Say yes. Have a yes mentality. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, can you speak to our community organization? Yes. Hey, can you speak to our school? Yes. Hey, I have a company. Can you? Yes. Right? Come speak at our church. We'll give you a chicken dinner. Yes. Right? We need the reps. We need to be seen speaking. Anything inbound, say yes. Anything outbound, my advice, done this a long time. I've walked with hundreds of speakers through the new speaker phase to get them to momentum stage as fast as possible. And here's the advice, and it's not based on my opinion, it's just on fact, what has worked and what hasn't worked. If you're going to do outbound, if you're going to be responding to all kinds of call for speakers or sending cold outreach emails or anything like that, or filling out forms on speaker listen, if you're going to do outbound outreach, do it to get on some stages, even if you have to speak for free. All right, momentum speakers, I see you as well. Maybe you are getting paid to speak, but just not as often as you would like to. You feel like it's a grind. You feel like it's a hustle. Every time you get off stage, immediately you feel unemployed. You got to get the next gig. And so what can we do in the face of budget cuts? Number one, package pricing. This is exactly how I was able to take that $4,250 max budget and book a $17,500 package, and then them say, can we add more to it, right? So package pricing, small, medium, Hail Mary package. Gone are the days where we are quoting prices over the phone or through a Zoom call. My goodness, stop doing that immediately. The reason package pricing is so effective, number one, it allows us to add value. And as we saw, budget is number 3 on the list. More important than that is what value are you bringing to the event? How are you going to engage our audience? And how are you going to educate our audience? So that value is beyond what you do on stage, right? Maybe you're going to educate and engage them before, during, after the event. Maybe you've got courses or books, lots of ways to package in more value. And also, again, because there are budget cuts, you're giving them a small option as well as a larger option, right? So instead of just cutting your fees in half or something like that, you're giving them the option, what's your budget, without asking, what's your budget, that kind of thing. So hopefully that little tip right there is helpful. Love what you're saying in the chat as well, Neelam. Looking forward to reconnecting with you. I know I did get your email. We'll chat soon. All right, next piece of advice for momentum speakers. Consider non-monetary compensation, right? So companies may come to me or organizations may come to me and say, look, my budget is this, and they mean it, right? And we present all the options and the packages and they say, cool, Tim, I said the budget was 5,000. You gave me the small option as 5,000. That's cool. But we really want the medium option for 15,000. Like, can we make that work somehow? And then I present them with what I used to call my non-monetary reimbursement option survey. And now I just call it my good vibes form, right? And these are ways that I am willing to not negotiate. Your fee is your fee. You set your fee and you get your fee, but it doesn't always come to you in the form of money, right? So I would be willing to do a gig where I get amazing video footage. So recently I did a gig at an arena and you'll see some video footage from that, right? So pretty cool to be able to get arena footage. Is that valuable to me? Absolutely. Was that payment in the form of money to get that video? Not necessarily, right? So I have 18 different ways that people can proactively help me to generate word of mouth, right? And that's why I call it my good vibes form. Is I'm trying to spread this message and of my speaking topic. I view myself as not someone who is promoting myself, but promoting my message, right? So the leader of a little mini movement, and I'm inviting people to join that. And let's spread the good vibes. So I have a good vibes form that I use. So definitely consider non-monetary compensation and saying, instead of saying, okay, I'll do it for 2,000, say, okay, my fee is 5,000. I'm going to invoice you for $5,000, and I'm going to reduce that invoice, and I'm going to itemize on the invoice because you're doing this and this and this for me. Then the fee comes down, the balance comes down to $2,000. All right, enough on that. Improve your brand quality. Step up your branding game, people. Look, If you want to be a $10,000 speaker, you got to look like a $20,000 speaker. I don't care what market we're in. I don't care what's happening to the budgets. We are in this stage and this phase where all of us speakers have a range that we will accept. So my range might be, 10,000 to 20,000, right? I feel like I'm back in the momentum phase of my own career here. I took 2 years off of speaking, for those who don't know, and my own speaking and getting back into it. Like I said, as of September, right, just a month ago. So we all have a range, whether it's 10 to 20 or 20 to 50 or whatever it is. And you probably also have a number that, well, I'll do it for 7,500, you know. The reality of the situation is speakers have a range, and if they're a $25,000 speaker, they may still accept 15 or 10 or 5, right? So what does that mean for us? Well, if we're at the top of our range and we're saying, okay, we're $10,000, I'm going to charge $10,000. Well, guess what? We're in competition with people's whose range is from 10 to 20. So we're in competition with $20,000 speakers. Does that make sense? So know your range, right? And if you want to be a $10,000 speaker, your range better encompass that $20,000. I gave this advice to somebody earlier today on one of our private calls, and I told them, price yourself so that when you're on the short list, right, gaining interest and getting on the short list doesn't put money in your pocket, right? You got to get the gig, right? So being shortlisted is nice, but you got to get the gig. So if you're going to get shortlisted, make sure that you are going to crush at that price level, right? So if you're going to charge $15,000, you better provide that $30,000, $40,000 worth of value, right? So that's the idea here. And part of what we need to do now is up our brand quality. We need to prove it. We need to look like it. That's website, demo video, those types of things. New speakers, don't worry about that so much, right? Don't spend $15,000 on your website. I mean, go get a Bash profile, for goodness sake, and just point people to that, right? And that'll generate gigs. It's a proactive thing for you as well. So again, but if you're in the momentum phase, then upping your brand quality is of paramount importance. So once again, AI, don't forget, AI is coming along and making everybody look pretty darn good. You can get some pretty sick promo photos that are 0% real, all AI, and they look like you, and it looks like you're on a big stage with a huge audience, standing ovation. And meeting professionals are feeling duped. They're feeling tricked. They're seeing incredible photos, incredible websites, incredible video, and none of it's real. So we are like baseball players playing in the age of steroids, and we're trying to stay clean and take care of our bodies and not trick people. But at the same time, we know that there are other people out there cheating the system with AI. So if you want to be a $10,000 speaker, you got to look like a $20,000 speaker, and don't do it the fake way. You may need to invest some resources there. All right, established speakers, increase your inbound leads because leads raise fees, right? Sounds easier said than done, of course, but you do need to increase the amount of inbound leads. If you got 5 people in line waiting for the same date, then yeah, jack your bidding war, right? Just set your fee, and as we call it, you have FU power in that moment. We call it fee up power, right? Leads raise fees. So increase your inbound. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And of course, plan for increasingly shorter lead times. How many of you have noticed this? Getting calls, getting emails saying, hey, we have a gig for you. Yeah, it's next week. Like, whoa. Well, the reason is budgets are down, attendance is down, ROI is questionable. So they're planning their events in such a way where they can hedge their bets and maybe not have to put on the event in the as the date approaches. If they're not getting the registrations, they have the ability to cancel the event. So there's a lot of this last minute stuff going on. Anybody in the chat, anybody notice this? My record was next day. I got an email saying, hey, can you come tomorrow? And that was a cancellation. It's a little bit of a different story, but you get the idea. All right, so just be ready for it. Just be ready for it. Budgets are down. That's the big one. That's the big universal finding across the board. But there are more. There are more. Finding number 2. And this one comes from the 2026 Planner Sourcing Report. And honestly, It's a whole bunch of places that report the same kind of thing, but this one caught my eye in particular. This little graph right here. And it's before they even got into the survey data. They're just like, hey, this is who we surveyed. We asked them, what age group are you? And these are the responses. So the people who are making the decisions on which speakers to hire, the people who are doing the event planning, the meeting planning, the whole events industry from the buyer side, right? The people who buy and hire speakers. The biggest chunks, right? It says mainly millennials, 56%, with Gen X making up 27%. So if you break these down into Gen X and millennials, it's everything that's blue here, and I'm considering this purple. So this chunk, right? This big chunk here, and this chunk. Add that all up, and that is people my age and younger, right? I'm kind of the elder millennial. I was born right on the line, right? So I'm a little bit Gen X, a little bit millennial. And what does that mean for us, right? These are the people that we're going to be working with. What does that mean for us? And what can we do differently based on this knowledge and this information? So here's my advice on doing business. We'll just say these days, right? Because this has nothing to do with the age of the people. This more has to do with the age that we live in, right? So more like just the times that we live in. Okay. So, for example, obviously technology is a big deal, and how people communicate has changed. This is not, crapping on young people in any way, shape, or form. All right. New speakers. What is my advice for you to do in business these days? Number one, up your LinkedIn game, right? We talk about upping your branding game for momentum speakers. The same is true for LinkedIn for newer speakers. You want to improve your profile. You want it to be super clear. You want to stay active on there for sure. And then you can join on reputable online directories as well, such as the Bash or eSpeakers or Gig Salad. The Bash is actually running a deal right now, and they have like some kind of 40% off for featured profiles or something like that. I think the message is like Halloween 40, I think you got to put in. But the Bash is a good one. That's the one we see the most traction with. So if you're not on the Bash and you're a newer speaker, and even momentum speakers, I'm still on the Bash. The reason I like this is because what do people do when the events are happening last minute and they need a speaker now? What would you do? I don't care what age you are. What age do we live in? We live in the age of jump on Google and find yourself a dang speaker, right? So the Bash and eSpeakers and Gig Salad and Speaker Match allow you a digital footprint to be found, and they are very active at search engine optimization and guess what? AI optimization. If you're not thinking about AI optimization and you are a speaker in 2025, then you are missing a huge, not just opportunity, but survival piece, right? A huge percentage of my inquiries have been coming through AI optimization lately, in terms of people jumping on Chat GPT and saying we need a speaker, and it spits out my name, right? So whether it's basic or pro, again, that may be sort of an individual experience there, but basic is often sufficient as long as it's proactively sending you leads and speaking opportunities, because that's how it pays for itself. All right, so like I said, don't invest $10,000 in a website. Get every single one of these going, and you'll pay way less, and then you get 1 gig and you pay for all of them for a year, right? So there you go. That's part of just being found where people are looking, right? So that's for new speakers. Momentum speakers, you got to be fast to respond these days. They're saying something came out recently, like something like 5 to 10 minutes is what people expect. They fill out your online form, they send you an email, they want to reply now. And even if you don't reply to them right away, someone else is, because there's someone who's always connected these days, right? Maybe your competition, maybe whoever, right? Once again, be findable on search and AI. Be findable on search and by AI. Be ready to communicate with this these days on their terms, right? So don't just have an email address. Or my goodness, even worse, just a phone number. There are some people who would rather gouge their eyeballs out with a rusty spoon than have to pick up a phone and call somebody, right? They'd much rather text or email. Give them that option, right? Give them the option to communicate on their terms. I also noticed something recently that I really liked, and somebody had suggested, instead of having a book Tim or a book Kathy or book Randy on your website, change that to express interest. I think the term they actually used was register interest, but I like express interest. And the reason that's significant for doing business these days is because, um, listen, my generation especially, I'll just speak for myself, commitment phobes, right? Commitment phobes. Jumping in and saying I'm going to book you is very different than I'd like to express interest. Okay, so just soften it a little bit. Next, differentiate in all areas. This is critical. There are a million options, and there are a million options at their fingertips. So, momentum speakers, you're in the pool, you're in the running. How are you different? And I'll tell you just a couple of quick things that I do. Number one, things like a good vibes form. How I communicate as a human being differentiates me from maybe some corporate or business speak that a lot of other speakers might be using. Another thing that I do is after they book me, they get a little packet. They get a little digital packet. And one of the things is a parody music video of Aretha Franklin's I Will Survive. And I've changed all the lyrics and had it re-recorded by a professional singer, and I had it edited so it's me like on an airplane, or it's me, driving to an engagement, or just different travel, with me with my suitcase or whatever. And the words were changed to, instead of I will survive, it's I will arrive. And the tongue-in-cheek joke is, look, I got you. I'm going to show up to this gig. You can relax. But it does so with personality and a little bit of creativity, if I may say so. And other little bits and pieces, right? So another thing that we're doing, and that I'll share with you later, is I don't have just a speaker demo reel, and I don't just have a sizzle reel, but we're also producing a very brief, what we call micro documentary, right? And it's the story of my idea, and it's just different assets, different ways of differentiating. We could go with this person who's just a speaker and maybe has done some Toastmaster stuff and some Rotary, or we could go with this person who they made a documentary about, right? It's just a different sort of differentiator, right? So let's go ahead and look for established speaker tips and ideas. Engage in consistent content marketing. Established speakers, share your idea. You are the number one champion of your idea. Continue to pound the drum, continue to fight the good fight, and do so where they're going to find you, right? So these days, credibility is how many followers you have. These days, people, what's climbing up the list of how they found speakers, it's we follow them on social media, right? So producing the content and staying engaged there is a way to grow those. And then simply, again, highlight differentiators, right? Maybe in the momentum phase, you have to build some differentiators. In the established space, you just got to highlight them a little differently. And here's another little twist here. This is different now in these days. Build towards celebrity if you're an established speaker. I used to rally against this and say, I don't want to be a celebrity. I don't want people digging through my trash. And what if I get famous? That'll be terrible. This is why I love this idea of medium famous that my kid calls me. He's like, Tim, or dad. He doesn't call me Tim. I don't get it. You're on airplanes. You got your name on all these books. So you're always talking to, people in meetings and flying all over the place. But nobody at school knows who you are. What's going on here? You must be medium famous, Dad. So, I love that idea because one of the ways we can differentiate ourselves is to create an amazing speaking experience. And one of the ways to create an amazing speaking experience is not just to have great content. Remember, these days, people can get content on YouTube. Okay. What is part of the experience? Meeting people, human connection, in-person events, right? Meeting the speaker, maybe getting a photo with like a little mini kind of B-list, C-list, D-list celebrity type person. So building towards celebrity actually creates a different type of experience for our audiences. And again, we don't have to go and try to be, A-list celebrity, but having little tagline, getting that TEDx talk finally, or putting out that next book and hitting that bestseller list, whatever it may be, right? Have a documentary made, right? We talk about that quite a bit lately. It's all in my mind. So anyway, finding number three, and this one comes from not a events industry report, but rather a universal across the board global report. Of course, I'm talking about the Edelman Trust Barometer, the global report, the trust and the crisis of grievance, right? And the fact is, the finding is trust is gone. We live in a time and in an age when everything feels artificial. It's very difficult to trust. And speaking is a high trust transaction. If I'm going to hire a speaker and you're going to speak for me, not only am I worried that you're not going to show up, but I'm worried that you're not going to say what I hope that you say, right? We're going to just give you our people and hope that you serve them, right? High trust transaction, and the Edelman report says trust is gone. It's a 78-page report. I'm not going to go through it. But essentially, the areas of business were the worst rated, right? And we are business owners. At the end of the day, people are doing business like a B2B type transaction in the corporate space. And that was worse than the media and worse than government, right? So they trusted business less than people trust the media and trust government. By the way, they don't trust media or government either at all. So we've got to overcome a trust deficit in a big, big way. How are we going to do that? New speakers, very simply, be clear. All right, these are really three things. Don't lose the importance of any of these. Be clear in your messaging. Know what you speak about. By messaging, listen, this is really important distinction. New speakers have a hard time differentiating this. It isn't what you speak about. It's how you speak about what you speak about. That's packaging. Not what you speak about. It's how you speak about what you speak about. How do you tie your message, your idea, your story into their wants, their needs, their desires, their pains, their pleasures, how do you do that? What's the box that contains the product of your speech? And if that's going to be on the shelf, people may pick it up and look at the box. They're not going to see the full speech until after they book it, right? So what is the packaging of that speech? Is it clear, concise, compelling? Is it speaking their language? Is it relevant for today's market, not for 5 months ago? Because that's totally different, as we've seen. So be clear. Then be consistent, right? It doesn't mean that you change with the wind every time something shifts, like, oh, and now I speak about this. Oh, now I speak about this. But it can shift how you frame what you speak about, and being consistent in putting out, again, content, ideas. Just be consistent. There was a LinkedIn report that came out from Richard Vanderblom, and they've moved away from algorithms. So they're no longer hackable. It's now artificial intelligences. If you're familiar with this, this is the 360 Brew update that came out recently. And the point is this: artificial intelligence is getting pretty darn close to actual intelligence. And actual intelligence kind of knows when it's trying to be hacked and duped, right? So if you're writing website copy and you're trying to hack the search engine algorithm, you might say something like, keynote speaker Kathy Sikorsky delivers keynote speeches as a keynote speaker, speaking in a keynote way, to try to stuff keywords. But a human reading that is like, this is like silly, right? So we have to make sure that we are communicating with human beings, and in doing so, we're actually doing a better job at communicating with the machines as well, who we're trying to, show up for. So, one of the examples I gave one of my private clients today was, the AI and the search engine. They're like the world's greatest speakers bureau, and you want to stay in touch with them. Right? You want to stay in touch with them. You want to let them know what you're up to. You want to continue being consistent, right? So be clear, be consistent, and then forget the algorithm, put that aside for a moment, and, be seen speaking to humans, right? Let humans see you speaking to humans. Be seen speaking is your single greatest way to build trust. Like I said, I had no degrees. I hadn't written any books at the time, but when they saw me speak, they didn't need to see a degree hanging on my wall. This was engaging. This made me feel good. I enjoyed it. Everybody enjoyed it. Great tips. That's all the proof they need. That's how you build trust. You show up and you deliver, right? Momentum speakers, reboot your messaging if you are finding that you are grinding. If you are grinding, and really struggling to gain traction, it may not be a process problem. It might be a packaging problem. It might be something like, hey, what got you here won't get you there. Maybe, just maybe, we need to take a look at rebooting that messaging. If you find yourself in the short list but not sealing the deal, if you're just not generating particularly and especially not generating inbound, right? If you're doing gigs and you're getting great reviews and feedback and high fives and handshakes and 10s out of 10s on reviews, but not getting inbound leads, that is very likely a packaging or a messaging problem. So you may need to do a message reboot. You also want to make sure that you're proactively cultivating word of mouth. Do not let word of mouth be an accident. Make sure you are proactive about it. I mean, we teach a whole bunch of systems for generating word of mouth. Of course, my good vibes form is just one of the tactics that I use to proactively generate word of mouth. I think there's 62 as of my last count, different ways that we do this, right? You can't wait and hope for word of mouth to happen. And since we know if trust is down, who do we trust? Our colleagues, our peers, our friends, referrals, recommendations. Show up in those referrals and recommendations. Assume the trust by proxy, right? I trust my friend, therefore I trust my friend's recommendations. I don't think we need to explain word of mouth. I think y'all get it. Makes total sense, right? The difference is don't wait for it to happen. Proactively generate word of mouth. And you do that by working on the craft. Be word of mouthable. Be remarkable, right? Able to be remarked on, good enough that people want to talk about it. But also implement systems, right? Just make sure that it's proactive, it's multifaceted, and it's not just like, oh, I did a Talkadot survey. Cool. All right, that's one piece. That's a good one. We love Talkadot. Don't get me wrong. Make sure you're implementing multifaceted systems. Oh my goodness, I did it again. Systems. Implement systems. All right, and then the third bit of advice for momentum speakers is, guess what? Here it is again. Step up your branding, right? If it's hard to believe you if your fee is $10,000 and you look like a $1,000 speaker. It's just hard to believe, right? Yeah, maybe I've seen you speak, but that's, you're ready to move to established speakers, right? You're not going to stay stuck in the momentum speaker phase. That was fine then. I didn't have a website for 9 years, right? Don't get me wrong. I was fine. But these days we really got to step up our branding. So if you're a momentum speaker, that's something you want to look at. All right, established speakers nurture relationships. Once again, relationships breed trust. Number 2, engage in consistent content marketing. My goodness gracious, there it is again. Build towards celebrity. Holy moly, one more time with the building towards celebrity. People believe and trust fame, right? It's a social outsourcing, like a crowdsourcing of who do we trust? Well, here is this celebrity-like person, right? And we've all done it. You Google somebody, you look at their stats, who's following them on Instagram or whatever it may be, right? And here's another tip: prioritize connection over perfection. This is a little bit of a side note, a rabbit trail, but so often we want, as established speakers, to exude perfection. Look at all the great things I'm doing. But in this day and age, in this time with all the technology, we have to exude humanity as well. So I talk about building celebrity, but listen, some of the most trusted celebrities are like vulnerable and authentic and genuine, right? So we've got to balance this. Now, this is also really important to notice that this is for established speakers only. New speakers, don't go out there prioritizing connection over perfection in this way. Here's a really embarrassing photo of me on stage when I tripped and fell. That won't work to establish humanity in the same way that it will for established speakers. Science has come back on this. It's called the pratfall effect. You need to have a little bit of credibility already and then start to introduce flaws, okay? So this isn't a tactic or a technique. It's just be a genuine human being and communicate your humanity. Maybe you had a gig and they had a photographer and they took 75 photos and 74 of them you're making a ridiculous face. Because you're animated when you speak and they catch you just at the wrong moments. We always want to post that one good photo, but I would recommend, hey, occasionally post one of the other 74 and caption and be like, oh, it's so embarrassing when this happens, and just share a human moment, right? Prioritize connection over perfection. All right, that was our agenda for the day. We wanted to look at the newest data. We wanted to give advice based on what your speaker level is, and I'm going to tell you right now what we're working on at Get Speaking Gigs. All right, I'm going to jump in here for the interests of time and go through exactly what our plans are for 2026. We're going to be working with a very small number of speakers and maybe you would be one of them. So let's take a peek at what it entails, what our plans are, and it really boils down to what I'm going to be doing in my own speaking business, right? I have recently repositioned myself, redecided that I'm a momentum speaker and that I have a lot to do to get back up to speed. 2 years away from the game is a long time. So I know that all of the action items that I recommended for you today in this webinar, I'm going to be needing to do some of these myself. So look, I would love to do it with a group of other like-minded speakers, all with the same shared goals. Maybe we pool resources together to make this happen. I'm calling it the Medium Famous Mastermind. Now, my son calls me Medium Famous because I'm on airplanes and I've written books and I'm always doing big, important things, but nobody at school knows who I am, right? So this idea of Medium Famous really means, a highly booked, highly paid, thought leader type keynote speaker for the corporate space specifically. Yes, we accept gigs for associations and nonprofits and maybe small business, but we're going to position ourselves as corporate keynote speakers, or for me, in my case, reposition, get back into that space. And I know I got a lot of work to do to differentiate myself and revamp my branding and all of this stuff. Again, you'll be privy to as we do this together. So that's why it's called the Medium Famous Mastermind with a twist at the end. There's another reason that will become quite apparent as to why we're calling it the Medium Famous Mastermind. There are 3 components to this mastermind group. I think, again, for what I would want in a mastermind, that's why I built this, and I think it's going to add a lot of value. 5 people plus me, weekly Zoom calls. We're going with hot seat format. That means 6 people, 10 minutes each. There's an hour, and we are going to have 10 minutes to share our wins, set our goals for the week, but also to pick everybody's brain and to bring our challenges and our questions to the mastermind, to the Brain Trust, and be able to get answers and solutions and direct specific action items every single week, so we never have a question of what do we do next to build our business. Now, that's each week we're going to have a session, but each month we'll have a theme, right? So examples might be the fact that November, December, we really need to develop our core messaging and our differentiators as we move into 2026. We're going to need to focus at some point on rebuilding, redrafting, refiguring out our websites, repositioning, repackaging our online footprints, especially for organic search, for AI search optimization as well. We're going to be talking about working with VAs or building teams. What tech stacks do we need? How can we share resources for that? What about content marketing plans, building intellectual property, working with bureaus and agents, and maybe what kinds of introductions can we make to each other? How can we further develop the craft of the speech? And how can we build out our business systems and, of course, our marketing systems? That is going to be a pretty dang good year. And again, I built this because I want 2026 to be my best year ever, but also position me and gear me up to have future success as well. So that is component number 1, piece number 1, weekly Zoom calls. And I very much look forward to this process of just making friends in the speaking business and a close, tight-knit group. Number 2, quarterly in-person. Speaking of close and tight-knit, let's get together in person for 2 to 4 day strategic work sessions, these little mini retreats that we get to really focus on the strategy and plan ahead for the quarter. We really get opportunities to do deep work and implement. And maybe even I'll invite some of my, big shot guests or friends, maybe some of the bureaus I have connections with, or, maybe some guest experts who might be able to come and teach us, share bits of wisdom. Maybe we get to take photos or, again, just expand our network. Also, hey, I've not spoken in Alaska or Hawaii. I've spoken in 48 states, but I've missed those 2. Maybe we'll check off 1 or of those, maybe even 2 as well. So I would love, again, just to have opportunities to get together in these fun locations and do the deep work necessary to build our speaking business to new levels. I'll give you an example of one of these in-person events. January's event. Look, if in November and December we're revamping our messaging and repositioning ourselves, we may need new video assets, and there's never too much video, right? So we're going to set up a nice big stage, maybe even a video wall, full AV lighting, camera crew, and we're going to get opportunities for each of us to stand on that stage and get footage of our new messaging. Very, very powerful to be able to prove that we can do what we say we can do, right? Oh, and also, by the way, the documentary film crew will also be on site at each event, getting footage and doing interviews for the film. Yeah, I said it. The documentary crew, right? The film crew. And if you haven't heard already, I'm in the process of planning and filming a documentary film, right? Called Medium Famous. Well, not me, there's a film studio. And we want to follow myself and these 5 speakers on this journey. And that's a big part of the reason we're going to get together in person 4 times next year, is to really have opportunities to film for this documentary as well. So what and why and how? Documentary film, what are we talking about here? Well, look, I know the importance of a demo video. I know the importance of a sizzle reel. But wouldn't it also be nice to differentiate ourselves by saying, hey, every speaker's got a demo reel, but I happen to be featured in the documentary film Medium Famous. Maybe that goes in your email signature file. Maybe it's just another way to differentiate ourselves, in addition to having a lot of fun and being able to get our messages out there in a new and meaningful way. So I'm going to share with you a clip of a documentary film, sort of a proof of concept idea, a micro documentary, and I've even butchered that. So I took it and I edited it way, way down. It was about 10 minutes. I'm going to show you about 4.5 minutes of this documentary film, just to give you an idea of what it might be like to be featured in a documentary film, but also to use it and to leverage it as an asset that will help you to book more gigs, build your business. And what do we talk about on this webinar? Build your celebrity, build your credibility, differentiate yourself, build up your personal brand, and add that notch to your belt. Featured in a documentary film, Medium Famous. And of course, we'll take this film to the streaming platforms, and there's obviously no promises there. It's a fickle industry, but it's a pretty high ceiling, and I'm pretty excited about this, and would love to invite, not everybody, but just the right person. In fact, if this resonates with you, I'm going to share with you a link to book a call with me so that we can make sure the vibes are right, give you an opportunity to ask whatever questions you have as well. So stick around after this little 4-minute clip or so. And again, this isn't perfectly edited. These are what are called selects. The film is not complete yet. This is just a couple of snippets of examples of me, being followed by a documentary film crew. All right, take a peek and we'll speak soon. So basically we're heading up to Augusta, Maine. I have a speaking gig tomorrow for a bank. Today is the travel day, and getting up to the hotel, getting settled, bringing in, I don't know, 500 pounds of books in the back of this SUV here. So yeah, excited for it and kicking off our season. Can I turn on red here? I'm gonna.
So when he's on the road as Tim David and on stage and speaking, probably a lot of the same, actually. I think in that capacity, I do things like, if he's selling books, I'm in the book table. I really just jump in as an executive assistant, if you will, or sometimes, producer type capacity and like making things happen. Sometimes I'm the one that hits record on the camera. I might be a minute late, but I often miss the opening. But it's coordinating things. It's sometimes running interference with people that are, if they're just, swarming him at a book signing table. It's, coordinating, creating some sense of order. I try.
So, yeah, I'm a mix of calm, a little bit of, and I think I'm calm. I feel like I have time. I like plenty of time, and I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and this is what's supposed to be happening now. A little bit of nerves because it's new material, and, really want to make sure that this client is happy. And I want to make sure the audience is happy. So I'm excited. There's where the magic happens, right? That's how we do it here. This ain't Cribs. This is this is where the magic happens here.
We selected him based on just looking at a lot of folks that we looked at online and tried to find the right person. But when we dug into his message, we asked for his books to be sent to us. We said, we just met as a team and said, this really resonates with what we're trying to say as a company and to all our employees. And we thought his nuance would be a great way for our folks to listen to the message from a different perspective. But again, it's still about the same messaging of the human digital connection, complemented by book, which folks could bring this home and read about his story a little bit further and kind of have that processing time down the road and hopefully talk about it.
Please welcome to the stage, Tim David.
Well done. Up top. Excellent.
Are you ready?
Let's do this. Where do you want me? Where's my mark?
Kind of pretty close to me, so
Okay.
right around there.
While the current and future idea of AI might be worrisome to some people, an event took place in Augusta today encouraging people to stay optimistic.
Yeah, super excited to be chatting to Camden National Bank about balancing human connection with artificial intelligence. As a professional speaker since 2009, I've been speaking about human connection, and this AI thing has shown up and caused us to really need and have a need to strike the balance between human connection and technology. Why do I do it? It's simple, really. It's because our world is spiraling towards this us versus them mentality, which is the opposite of human connection, really, right? And technology was supposed to help. It was supposed to connect us even more, and the quantity of human connection has gone up. But what we're seeing happening to the quality of human connection is very disturbing. So that's why I do it. That's why I do all the travel and the late nights and the early mornings and spend all the time researching and studying, what is happening and what can we do about it. Because even if we can just make a dent, just even a little dent in this whole spiral towards us versus them, then yeah, it's all worth it. That's it. You give me the magic bullhorn, give me 15 seconds, no question. That's what I'm saying. So that's it. If you have interest in the mastermind group, go ahead and get a time on my calendar. We need to talk. We need to talk about it. I would love to meet you and find out whether or not this is going to be a fit, give you an opportunity to ask whatever questions that you have, and obviously talk about what it might take to be involved. And if you'd like to join the Speakers Who Hate Marketing community, then just head over to speakerswhohatemarketing.com and sign up. Totally free. All right. Speak soon.